brought to you by Knights of Awakening. This is the Labyrinth. We had a recent question over in an organization I belong to on Facebook, the Order of the Thorn, and that was about the 9 aspects of the soul in heathen tradition and runic lore. I did a little bit of research on this, what I could find, and I'll provide my view of this and what I suspect our forefathers and foremothers' view was as well, our ancestors, how they viewed the soul in as much as they viewed the soul, and why the Norse traditionally, the focus on it wasn't the way we would expect. With that said, we should hit on what a soul is. We really have an idea of the soul that is very inherently based on Christianity and Abrahamic traditions in our current society. We kind of create this split that goes into the mind, the body, and the soul. And a lot of traditions didn't have that. In fact, I suspect from the research that I've done, most pagan traditions had anywhere from 4 or 5 different subsets of what the soul was supposed to be, the way we view it, or what the self is supposed to be, and that they were all interconnected. And in that, the concept of the immortal soul, as we see it, is so verily heavily influenced by these Abrahamic traditions that as soon as we begin talking about the soul itself, we've taken a step kind of off the original path. And this is a terrible thing for me to say because, I work with a technique I call the soul sword, and I'm very big into the idea of the soul. And I can tell you my ancestors were not, at least not in the way that we view it today. But maybe they hit on something that we didn't. Now, I did a little research and found a couple websites with information to help, kind of refresh where I stand on this. Because I really don't give it a whole lot of thought. I kind of tie everything together. There are between, 9 and 20 dozen different planes of existence that you may project to, journey to, or ascend or descend to, depending on the culture you're in. And this is where the first problem starts, is that if the soul is simply that essence of the self beyond the body, then either it does exist in all those places at once and it's a transcendent force, or it does not and it is a transformational force that can move between those places. Ultimately, it comes down to personal belief. So we're going to hit on the Norse view, and I'm pulling very heavily from NorseMythology.org for this because it's the most effectively researched site that I can find. Whenever the author doesn't know something, he makes it clear that he doesn't know something. He's also written an amazing book called The Viking Spirit, which has become one of my go-to reference guides. So I'm pulling heavily from there, at least for terminology, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on how that incorporates to being Norse. And then I'm going to look at the modern Norseman and what that means for us, those that would call themselves Asatru, or call themselves Norse, or what have you. So with that, let's pull up my research notes here. There are 4 parts of the soul, as the Norse would understand it. Let's rephrase that. Let's drop the term soul altogether. There are 4 parts of the self. And in this, they all are individual, yet working together at all times. And if any one part dies, the other parts may still live on. Likewise, parts may come and go. Even the body is believed to be able to be brought back by the Norse faith and traditions. We just don't see it happen all that often. That would be where your Thorogar come from. The idea that their body just got back up. It was not done fighting yet. They die and they're like, well, that was inconvenient. It's time to get up and kill someone. Kind of like me, if I've got enough coffee in me. So, with that, you have the hammer, like the English word hammer, and that is the body. That is, we can touch that, we can hit that, we can beat it, and we frequently do beat it into submission and into direction of our choosing. This is the simplest of the parts. It's the physical. The next part would be the huger, or thought, mind. And maybe that's the soul, as we see souls. The huger is the part of you that expresses and thinks. It is the thought body form. It exists and overlaps with just about everything else, and it is kind of your inner self. So when we start talking about the soul, what comes to mind for me is the huger. And there's no distinction in the Norse philosophies between the huger and really any higher force as we know it, yet other forces are in play. The next force that is mentioned on this site, and is one that I would like to really hit on, this is where we get into the separation between mind and spirit. And this is where I think we're going to see that the Norse concept probably goes beyond 9 aspects of the self. It's more like 999 aspects of the self and the soul. The Fylgja, and my pronunciation is getting better, if you'll notice, or worse, depending. This is the spirit guides and the other manifestations, and it is not 100% clear if these are aspects of you, or if they are just connected to you, kind of like a spirit family. My belief, well, we'll get to my beliefs in a minute, but this would be the essence of essences that connect to and maneuver around you. Hugin and Munin would be examples of this for Odin, to some degree. But that's still not exactly accurate. And the reason is it's not exactly accurate because we're dealing with a culture clash on a level that you can't really fully comprehend. As soon as we used the word soul on this, we were screwed. Because the Norse would have looked at you and been like, yes, you're worried about my soul, then, give me $50 and a loaf of bread and some good meat and my soul will be fine. Because the essence of who they were was all of this, and they didn't see any one spot as more true or less true. So they would refer to their body first, because that's the first part of the soul that is most prominent in your day-to-day life. And they believed that it transitioned in some way when it went to the afterlife, that there was a body there that was as much a body as this one. Just as the gods can bleed and die, so too could we. Funny, right? We don't really make ourselves any greater than we were with this faith. And nor did we make the gods, particularly omni-anything. The closest we have in the Norse for an omni-anything in our gods is omni-arrogance. Our gods are capable of being arrogant everywhere, all at once, and in all forms of arrogance when they choose to be. Which is about as close as you can get to omnipowerful when you're butting heads with someone, the will to win because you believe you can't. All of that said, the Fylgja is very hard to translate into modern concepts because we break our concepts of self down. This would be where the soul sword comes in. It is an aspect of the self manifesting. It is the Fylgja. Which, the fact that my ancestors had a method for this that I didn't even really think about looking for until it was time to do this video and answer this question, really kind of warms my heart. It warms my hammer. That sounds so wrong. Okay. The last part is the Hamanya, which is going to be really hard to explain, so we're going to call it the destiny self. It is the part of you that influences the weird, your luck. Because the Norse didn't see luck as just roll the dice. It was a power and a force. Kind of like how we understand magic to this day. Kind of like how we see all of these different things put together. So the Hamanya was the aspect of you that influenced all of those things, and it too has its own body. And all of these parts could operate independently. So you could run into someone's Hamanya as a spirit form, as a body. You could run into their Hugur as a body, or their Filya as a representation of them. You know, you could be walking along and see a rabbit and think of me. Why rabbit? I don't know. I like rabbits. Maybe because I'm so fluffy. But, you know, it would be an aspect projected. We who have been influenced by the Abrahamic traditions seek so much for solidity, a single point of something that simply makes it all make sense. And pagans were very simple in that they didn't make it all make sense. Especially heathens. We recognize you would have all of this and more. So let's get into my personal... I told you I would go over this, and this is the most accurate information I could find. And the reason I say this is because sources are cited, information is provided, and it does not borrow too heavily from Edred Thorson's work, which borrows way too heavily from his Cetus background. Not that I have anything against him. He made being Norse popular in some ways. So I kind of owe him, you know. I almost want to shake his hand with one hand while holding on tightly and beating him with the fist of my other hand. You know, but the man was a genius in his own right, and he understood magic very well, so his work still has its value in that, even if I don't like the fact that he really invented too much and assigned it under the statement of fact. Therefore, you won't see me use his work directly. Even when I'm working with runes, I recognize that it's more the culture of the modern day that's assigned value to these symbols and the way that we use them than Thorson's work himself. So, with that, as I'm hitting on that, the value of this, my view, okay, because I've covered what I can tell you, and I'm going to cover the rest. I believe, looking at this, that the Hammer, the idea of the physical self, was a core and important part, but I believe that we felt it was tied, in that the idea of it staying in a state of death was kind of foreign to us. We assumed that it kind of moved and transitioned in the next life to another Hammer. This would be your physical self, and that no matter what realm you existed in, you would have a Hammer. So in that, you would have 9 Hammers, depending on where you were at any one point. So if you were, for whatever reason, in Asgard, you would have your Asgardian Hammer, your Asgardian body. And it would be like a body, okay? And wherever you went, that went too. It would almost be like stepping through a portal, but this portal opens in a way within the mind, within the understanding of the self, that goes beyond the physical here and now. Because, of course, our people knew that when someone died, the body decayed. They dug up a grave eventually. So I would have to believe that the explanation was very simple. You have another Hammer waiting wherever you go, and you use that Hammer there. And if ever you were to come back, then it would require that the gods fashion you a new Hammer, or some method of that. So that is your vessel point. Okay? Hugur has to do with the concept of the soul, the driving force, the personality, what makes you who you are, that pilots the Hammer. And it is separate and can project on its own. And it is the essence of mind and thought. And to the Norse, mind and thought were interconnected to magic and understanding of the projection from the self. So, looking at that, I'd say the Hugr still would be the essence of all energy work that we understand within the projection of thought and will, as well as the guiding force within the body. The Philia were things like spirit guides and such, which are tied to it, but they're an integral part of you. They make up who you are. They are an aspect of you as you are an aspect of them. No line was divided, and you could actually, I would say, gain Philia through better understanding of the self and exploration. This is where we get into things like the Soul Sword and the Soul Gem, which is something that I may do an episode on for those that, are interested in that at some point. And then finally, the Hamanjah, which is your overall energy and force of destiny. This is in and of itself the field of power that emanates. And it is your undercurrent. So maybe you could even consider that to a degree to be the undersoul, And it is in and of itself separate, from your Hugr. Because your Hugr, while it can influence events, doesn't influence your raw luck, your raw force of will around you, at least under the old mentalities. And even then, like I said, I think this was all more connected for them. I think we are trying to split things up in a way they wouldn't. So I don't think there is a division for the Norse in this. I think that they would look at me like, yeah, you're obviously your Hugr was strong enough to influence your Hamanjah and allowed victory in that battle. And they'd be like, well, we would look and be like, well, isn't the Hamanjah separate? And they would be like, are you simple? I really think a lot of the things that we, having been raised in these Abrahamic traditions and been conditioned to this idea of drawing this freaking line between things that doesn't need to be there, in the same way that Eastern traditions don't draw lines between these things in the way that we have. I think paganism and heathenry especially didn't draw these lines. So if I walked up to, a Gothi in ancient times and said, sir, I need to understand more of my Hamanjah and my destiny, he would look at me and be like, so have you been training your will and dedicating yourself? Well, I didn't think that had anything to do with it. That's the Hugr. He would be like, are you stupid? Are you simple? And of course I would say, no, sir, I was Christian for a while, and probably get a response of, that explains it. And not all Christians draw that line either. Your agnostics don't draw the line in the same way. So I can't really fault them. And a lot of your Jewish mystics and Abrahamic mystics tend to blur or break or destroy the line for a reason. Because these lines are artificial. They're ways to help us understand that we are a flowing, ever-changing force of nature in this world that shifts and grows and is in many places at once, and yet has a pinpoint-focused physical body zoning in. That's my view of it. That's my take on all of this. And it was a really simple question to start this, and I want to apologize for not being able to hit on more of the concept of 9 individual parts of the self, because I don't really see it in that way, and it's very hard for me to provide a view where I feel some of it is created because someone somewhere said, man, 9 is an important number of the Norse, so everything has to have 9 parts now. And everything doesn't have to have 9 parts. I got 2 arms, 2 legs, and assorted other parts in there, which if I had 9 of, my wife would kill me. Think about that for a minute. Nothing requires that we have not things split into 9s for the Norse. While 9 is a powerful number for Norse mysticism, and I highly recommend you use it or permutations of it, don't feel like you need to get drawn into that recognize that these divisions are arbitrary, they're influenced by Abrahamic traditions, and our people probably seen it as more of a mesh with all of these things overlapping. So, if you were emotionally hurt, your Hugar could influence your Hammer in such a way that the very pain felt in the body could cause your Filgal, your spirit guides and forms, to weep for you. And in their weeping, their tears could fill your Humminjaw, and your destiny could shift in a different direction. The overlap, the interconnection, all is one, one is all. I think we understood that better then because we weren't sitting down and trying to turn this into circuit boards that we could swap in and out. And part of that's the modern, part of that is other traditions. I hope this helps educate you. This has been one of our What It Means to Be Norse episodes. And I hope that it helps you awaken that part of your soul. And by soul, I mean inspiration. Because that's what we're here for. And in that, I hope it helps you awaken the night within.